On this edition of Whaling City Ghost Presents, we've got an especially scary story for you. We're going to bring you into the southeastern corner of the Bridgewater Triangle. We'll be entering the infamous Freetown Fall River State Forest, where not only many crimes have been committed, but where a satanic cult once performed rituals in the dark, shadowy woods. Spanning an area of over 5,200 acres, this landmass was once considered sacred to the Wampanoag tribe. It is said that the rock, now called Profile Rock, but once known as Joshua's Mountain, resembles Massasoit, the great chief who helped the Pilgrim to survive their first winter here in the new land. Since then, it has become a state reservation with a lot to offer. An area of 227 acres was designated to the Wampanoag tribe and is now used as a reservation. I would like to share their sentiment that visitors are not welcome there without permission. On many occasions, people have gone there and shamefully are known to vandalize the grounds. A tukwak, which is a Wampanoag word meaning male deer, was not recorded in the forest but very close by. We believe that many spirits of the Wampanoag ancestors still walk the lands, hoping to be here as guidance for their living descendants. We are always honored when they choose to communicate with us, and they have a special place in our hearts. Though we do believe many Wampanoag spirits are present in the area surrounding this huge tract of land, we have reason to believe there are many spirits, both good and bad, that dwell alongside them. Many bodies have been found within the boundaries of these woodlands. 2 homeless men were found on Bell Rock Road, and approximately 20 bodies have been dragged out of a deep body of water left behind by a quarry that is now known as the Ledge. In 1978, the body of Mary Lou Arruda, a 15-year-old cheerleader, was found tied to a tree. During this episode, I think it will become clear to all why exactly it is that I was destined to become a paranormal researcher. For me, this case became quite up close and a bit more personal than I had ever expected. With my past history, the cult murder case was something that I had always tried to stay away from. I prefer to only involve the team with cases that are negative in nature when someone is in need of assistance. Initially, when called upon by our local spooky radio show to participate in their annual Bridgewater Triangle show, we intended to remain at the Profile Rock site in hopes of making contact with the spirits of the Wampanoag. Using my limited knowledge of the Wampanoag language, I called out words hoping to encourage them to come closer. As the clouds cleared and the moon began to light the thicket, we began to realize the spirits present were of a darker nature than we had hoped. Changing tactics, we began to lean our questions in the direction of the cult murders that occurred in the late 1970s to early 1980s. During the 70s and 80s, prostitution was rampant in the New Bedford Fall River area, but it was quite more sinister than that. Some of the local pimps and prostitutes were performing satanic rituals in the Freetown Fall River State Forest. Local officials were finding mutilated cows and other animals in the depths of the woods. Cemeteries in the area were being vandalized, headstones were being broken, and some were stolen and are still missing to this day. The perpetrators of these desecrations were also breaking into graves and stealing skulls from the deceased. Animal graves were being opened and the bones also removed, we presume for some sort of satanic rite or ritual. Somewhere in the depths of the tall trees, a self-stylized satanic cult was gathering steam for much more heinous acts. The first victim, Doreen Levesque, was found beneath the bleachers of the Fall River Vocational School. Her body had been ritualistically abused before and after death. Next was Barbara Rapoza, found behind a Fall River printing shop. She had also been ritualistically abused before and after death. Karen Marsden, the last victim, was the most vicious of the murders, as she was considering becoming a state witness. Her body was never found, and she was identified by skull fragments, jewelry, and the testimony of one of the perpetrators of these crimes who had turned state witness, Robin Murphy. Carl Drew, the alleged ringleader of the cult, Andre Maltese, a cult member and Barbara Rapoza's boyfriend, and Robin Murphy were all convicted for the triple homicide. Andre Maltese died in prison. Robin Murphy was released for a short time before parole violations sent her back to jail to serve her life sentence. Carl Drew, who still denies his involvement with these murders, remains in prison, serving his own life sentence. There are many who believe it was not Carl Drew who ran the cult, but Robin Murphy, who was the ringleader of this group. We may never know the truth in this case, or the location of Karen Marsden's body, but what we do know is that those rituals and those murders have left uneasy spirits behind. Only 2 investigators were available for our first investigation in the Freetown Fall River State Forest: independent investigator Renee Carr and I. Toward the beginning of our investigation, as we set up equipment, I watched as a misty, human-shaped figure slipped behind a nearby tree. Looking toward Renee, I noticed her back was turned in my direction, and with nothing to back up my sighting, I attributed the form to high humidity present that night.
At one point, Luann was staring beyond me. I was about maybe 10-15 feet away. And she mentioned that she saw something in between the trees, a shadowy shaped figure, maybe, or misty looking. So I proceeded to get my equipment together and see if I could see what she saw. At that time, I didn't see it. And a little while later, while I was sitting there staring into that area, I too thought I saw a misty figure. I did pull out the camera and the video camera, but I was unable to capture anything at the time.
After hearing a strange thump, Renee exclaimed that a stick had just flown out of nowhere, hitting her in the back of the leg.
Well, it was a crazy night. We did the yearly investigation for Spooky South Coast, and we were at Profile Rock. Luann was sitting at the base of the rock, and I decided to just mosey along, camera in one hand, recorder in the other. I had asked, can you give us a sign? Can you maybe throw something at one of us, or make a branch fall but not to hurt us? And I continued walking very slow-paced, and all of a sudden, from a very low level, from my left side, I felt a stick or something hit the back of my knee, and I also heard that little thud. As I turned and I asked Luann, did you just throw that at me? And she's like, no. But as I turned, I caught the tail end of the little piece of branch hitting the ground. So Luann came over to me and we started walking around and doing this and purposely stomping on a stick here and there, and we weren't able to make a stick rise. It did not come from a tree. It came from the side of me, knee level. We did ask, who threw that stick at Renee? What did we get? I did. Who was the I?
One EVP taken that night is deceiving in the sweetness of the sing-song voice that states, "You will serve Satan." It is soft, and almost directly after Renee Carr states, "I'll tell you what." As Renee pulls a tripod from her equipment bag, it slips from her hands, dropping to the ground, and is the clattering noise you hear just after a female spirit tells us to get out. Toward the middle of the investigation, we began to feel as if we would not be honored with the presence of the Wampanoag spirits, and something much grimmer was making itself known. As we recalled details of the cult murders, Renee asks, "Doreen, are you here?" The answer is still a mystery to us. Could Doreen have been pregnant at the time of her death?
Doreen, are you here?
Renee forms the question, who is Carl Drew? Did Carl Drew kill those girls? The answer is simply the name, Carl Drew.
Who's Carl Drew? Did Carl Drew kill those girls?
As we left the area to walk back to our vehicle, it wasn't only the moon that followed us home. For 22 years, I was physically assaulted by an unseen entity that later terrified my two sons. Due to the events that took place on a regular basis in my life, I began researching the paranormal when I was 20 years old. When my children were being affected by this entity, I knew something had to be done. I finally understood that there was no rational explanation. These things were real, and they were happening. It was a long process, but I did eventually free myself and my family from whatever that being was. I thought that would be the end of my horrifying adventures with the paranormal. Boy, was I ever wrong. Over the years, as my sons grew to manhood, unexplained events continued to occur around me. Objects would be lost, only to be found later exactly where I had originally left them. Apparitions could be seen in my homes. Strange noises, footsteps, and voices calling my name continued to plague me. It finally dawned on me that I was being shown the path I was to take. This is how Whaling City Ghosts came to be. Something inside me told me that if I entered the field, the ghosts of New England would be more than willing to communicate with me. I also hoped that as I learned and experienced more, I could help others with problems similar to mine. After over 28 years researching and investigating the paranormal, I have come to believe that my ghost magnetism is as simple as a spinal birth defect that I believe wreaks havoc on the energy field that surrounds me, and ghosts find it irresistible. Shortly after our investigation at the Profile Rock site, violent activity began to occur in my home. My younger son still resided at home, and along with many of his friends, began to experience frightening activity. He and his friends would see a black mass or the apparition of a tall, dark man. Objects would be thrown about the house forcefully, and at one point a plastic baby block was thrown with enough velocity to rattle the plate it hit. Some of the more memorable events were quite astounding. One such event happened just as I had gotten out of the shower. I was in my room with nothing more than a towel on my head. I sat on my bed and opened a dresser drawer. As I did, I saw the reflection of a tall, dark man in the mirror as he walked from one side of my room to the other, then disappeared. On another occasion, I was in my living room vacuuming the floor while my son took a shower. Suddenly, the bathroom door flew open. Then the shower curtain ripped aside, revealing my son, who covered up and called, "Ma!" When he spotted me standing in the living room, vacuum in hand, he closed the shower curtain angrily while saying, "Darn ghosts." On one night, while I was in my room reading a book, my son was alone in the living room. Hearing something get knocked over in the kitchen, he hurried to snap photos of the kitchen from the living room. 2 of the approximately 20 pictures he took had strange, human-shaped anomalies in them. As time went on, the activity increased, but it was apparent this spirit was much more active just before, during, and just after the full moon. I knew it was time to do something that I prefer not to do and do not recommend for most people. It was time to call in my team and have an investigation to identify the spirit in the home and decide on a course of action to remove it. During the course of the night, a few strange things did occur. Crystal spotted an apparition as it fled down my hallway toward my bedroom. Later, she saw my bedroom door slam closed. After careful examination, she determined that it was not possible that the wind had closed the door the way it had, as the rug pile in the room is much too high and makes it hard to close the door, even by hand. Early in the night, we recorded what sounds like a female child's voice telling us, "Entity. Not welcome here." After 2 hours of investigation, we decided to take a short break. Letting ourselves relax for a short time, we had a few laughs before beginning the arduous work of investigation. We continued to let our recorders roll during our break and recorded this strange EVP just after Crystal says jokingly, "If the vans are rockin', don't come knockin'." The EVP says, "Virgin boy I can kiss." We don't know exactly what they mean by that. After our short break, we decided to sit quietly and give the spirits a chance to communicate if they so wished. During this time, we recorded a deep male voice, and as we, the only people present, and both of us being female, we believe that this voice comes from an invisible source. Defier the beast is what we believe this particular entity liked to call itself. Continuing our investigation, we recorded many EVPs along with recording video during the night. Deciding to split up into separate rooms, we sat quietly, letting our recorders do the work. As I sat alone in the darkness of my son's room, I told the spirit it was not welcome in my home. I heard a voice near my head as if it came from the very air. It took me a moment to realize what had just happened, and I asked, "What was that?" I thought at first it had said "fine" in answer to my telling it to leave, but when I reviewed it, what it had really said was, "You're mine."
What was that?
I'm happy to say that with little help from my friends, my home is once again entity-free. Since Whaling City Ghosts has been involved with the Bridgewater Triangle Show for our local spooky radio show, we were again invited to participate in the 2013 edition. We decided to enter the Fall River side of the forest where there are public access roads so we would avoid trespassing. Night passes are available at the ranger's office, but we could not make contact in time for the show. Strangely, some of our members had mysterious equipment failures that night, and we are relying on new footage that we have gathered. At night, there is always a strange feel to the forest, and we all felt it. One EVP still has us scratching our heads. Person is one such EVP. Is the spirit referring to us as persons, or is he referring to himself as a person? Many spirits that we have encountered in our time together don't seem to know they are dead, and we wonder if this might be the case with this spirit. One thing I can say happens often during investigation is that many times spirits ask us, the living, to help them. We can only hope that someday we will learn exactly how it is that we can help the dead.
You there?
The next example of EVP is a weird one indeed. At times, the words make no sense until you reverse them and play them backwards. This next coupling of EVP is an example of just that. As Gabby and Sue discuss equipment, a voice pipes in, having trouble with that. Shortly after, another voice states, she's really part remnant, which makes no sense to us. But on reversing the recordings, the first part, having trouble with that, becomes, now there were white men. The second part, she's really part remnant, turns into, then they ripped off the English when played in reverse. Though I have no explanation how this is possible, I often wonder if the message an EVP gives when played in reverse is what the spirit really meant to say. We can only hope that more research can bring us closer to answers.
The response to the name.
Oh, that's right. All in all, when we take a closer look at the Freetown Fall River State Forest, we can see that many negative events have happened there. It is our hope that by enjoying the beauty of nature and the facilities that have been provided, such as picnic tables, grills, and water fountains for children to play in, we can all take part in reversing the negativity that has been enacted there. Take a hike through the woodlands, ride a horse over the trails, or rev your dirt bike down the hills and around corners. Climb to the top of the ledge and enjoy the splendor of the high view. Whaling City Ghosts hopes that through continued positive use of this small part of nature's playground, we can all help to erase the negative events that have plagued these peaceful woods. Never trespass. Please obtain a night pass if you'd like to investigate the area. The Copicut roadside has public access roads and can be accessed at any time. But if you do decide to visit, keep your eyes on the lookout for the mad trucker of Copicut Road. You never know when he'll make an appearance and drive you off the road. Together, we hope to bring light, happiness, and peace to the lost spirits of this forest. Thanks for being here with us this time on this edition of Whaling City Ghost Presents. Look forward to seeing you in the future, for you never know where Whaling City Ghosts is going to take you next.